Hello and welcome to our game here on the Thursday with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined like we are every Thursday by Carey and Carey Power, two men who were very happy after last weekend's results with obviously Kilkenny and Limerick heading for an All-Ireland final. You'd swear we kind of predicted it when we got the two boys in for the podcast at the start of the year. Lads, we'll be talking loads about the two matches from the weekend, but first off, Kieran Kingston, he's confirmed that he's gone, Kieran. Pat Ryan is coming in his place. What have you made of this and the swiftness of the decision?
Yeah, I suppose it's done kind of quick. I suppose the transition was kind of extra quick, so it probably mightn't have been as clean as it probably should have been. And, they didn't delay. They obviously had Pat Ryan, I suppose, in the memory bank. They know his pedigree. He was involved in the under-20s. They didn't delay it. And, Kieran Kingston, to be fair to him, he two stints at it. And, he did a fair good job, bar one or two results. And listen, it's possibly time for someone new and fresh to come in, and I suppose there will be pressure on Pat Ryan out to deliver the goods because traditionally Cork are a massive county and they're usually in the melting pot every second or third year, and that isn't the case. So there'll be extra pressure, but that goes with management anyway, Shane. You expect that.
Yeah, Richie, your thoughts?
Look, I suppose when it came out, Shane, that he was offered another year, one more kind of year, I didn't expect him to actually take it up, being honest. So I'm not surprised, but a little bit surprised with the swiftness of his predecessor coming in. He only announced it Sunday night and Pat Ryan was announced Monday night. So obviously there was work being done in the background before Kieran made up his mind and made his announcement Sunday night. But look, as Kieran said, he's 2 terms. He's done an excellent job there. Taken quite a bit of probably flack from within the county as well, past players and whatever else. So, look, you can't maybe blame him for stepping aside and hand it over to someone new. And, a big job for Pat Ryan and there'll be huge expectations in Cork going forward.
Yeah, I suppose, and he would know every young player in the county, having managed them to back-to-back under-20 All-Irelands. What did you make of The Rock tweeting afterwards, Kieran? He obviously isn't happy with some people within the camp, and just even he was quoted on OTB this week then saying there was a guy who questioned our loyalty to senior players. Had we alienated some of them? The same guy who questioned our loyalty once he was deemed surplus to requirements by Kieran jumped ship on the very club who gave him the opportunity to play for Cork and move back across the border. So, I mean, look, we all know he's talking about Anthony Nash there. But, is there any need for that when you end a tenure? It's not like The Rock wasn't doing columns in the past when John Myler, for example, wasn't over the team. Can you afford to be that sensitive when you're in the job?
No, and I suppose with the modern era and social media, that's going to come at you, and it's going to come at you kind of a pump action, way. And I suppose, when I was playing, whatever interview I would have been a lot more clever and cuter in around how I verbalize things versus how I speak now, and I suppose I'm acutely aware of being a past player myself, I'd never kind of wail the axe too much because I'd have too much respect for somebody and I know the amount of work that goes into it. And I suppose, listen, there can be some games too from ex-players. You don't know fully what's at play, Shane. But I suppose if your morals and you're loyal to that word respect, usually you won't dive into it. You'll be a small bit more clever and cute. Yeah. And I suppose, listen, Dermot O'Sullivan's a passionate guy. He was a passionate player and, he was involved in Cork for a good number of years. And he knows himself deep down that this Cork team hasn't gone to the maximum potential. And I suppose from his point of view, the last thing he wants to hear is an ex-intercounty player to tell him that. That's probably where he's coming from.
Yeah. Do you understand where The Rock's coming from? Is there any point to what he's doing, Richie?
Look, I don't think there's any point in what he was doing. Sorry?
Oh, no, sorry. You just seemed to stall for me for a second there. So
sorry. Yeah, no, look, I don't think there's any point to what he was doing. He could have made his point, he could have come across with his point without, I suppose, singling out individuals in particular. Obviously everyone knows who he was speaking about, as you said, but look, I suppose he probably felt hard done by, aggrieved by, the amount of criticism that they would have got as a management team, even though, I suppose, looking back on their tenure, they got him to an All-Ireland final. So look, I can understand where he was coming from. Probably wasn't the right time to come out and tweet about it though. And I suppose, look, their time was up. They should have, he maybe should have just left, I suppose, sleeping dogs lie. And, if it comes to it, if he wanted to have it out with the individual himself when he crosses paths with him, so be it. But I just don't think it was the right time to maybe come out and say what he said.
Yeah. So, Kieran, Matty Kenny, yesterday it was announced that he's no longer going to be part of the Dublin setup after 4 years in charge there. Are you surprised with it? Is it kind of like, yeah, this season didn't go great, hard to see, are they kicking on to another level? So maybe it's not that surprising.
No, I wasn't that surprised with that. But I suppose the big one here for Dublin, for me, like Matty Kenny, he's a super manager from Galway, and I suppose long term, I'd imagine, he'd like a crack at the Galway job down the tracks. And he did a fair enough job in Dublin. And to be fair, I think he's doing the manly and honourable thing. But the big one for me for Dublin is, if you're going to replace, no different to a sub, if you're going to replace a sub, you're going to be on a player who's going to improve the situation. Likewise, in a managerial position, you must replace him with someone better, with someone probably, a small bit more vision and a small bit more imagination. And, that's going to be a tough task for Dublin now, nailing that right, because I firmly believe, if your line is right and your backroom team is 110% right, you're always there with a fair 50-50 chance.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I suppose I don't think you were surprised by it, Richie. I think towards the end of the season you saw a natural parting of ways, didn't you?
Yeah, and I suppose, look, we spoke, I think it was last week or the week before, we spoke about it, Shane, and I didn't expect him to be involved, not involved, but I didn't expect him to, be in charge next season. I think you kind of had heard that he was going to be there. But look, he's given 4 years to it. Look, he's definitely improved hurling in Dublin. Like what he done with Coola was phenomenal. To win back-to-back Club All-Irelands, like that can never be taken away from him. And I just think, as Kieran said, there needs to be an injection. Maybe that X factor. Whoever comes in next. We spoke about Davy kind of putting in forward his name into the hat. So it'll be interesting to see who they do get in next year. I don't think it'll be as quick as an appointment as Cork. However, I do think that they'll take their time and they'll want to get the right man in. But look, absolutely, Matty Kenny has done a great job over the 4 years. But I think he knew himself that, his time had come to an end, and he'd probably taken the players as far as he could take them personally.
Yeah, and then I'm looking at some of the people who could potentially come in, and plenty of these have experience in Dublin, and actually a few of them specifically with Coola when I've been involved. So Eddie Brennan, obviously, he's a major candidate because obviously he's been over Laois as well. David Herrity did some coaching with us in Coola under Willie Maher a couple of years ago. I found him excellent. Joe Fortune won a county title with Ballyboden. Derek McGrath is another name, and Davy Fitz. Is there anyone that you would think, Richie, is more likely than others? Anyone that you would see as a good fit?
I suppose, like when I heard Eddie was heading to Coola, I kind of got an inkling that maybe it was a stepping stone towards the Dublin job. Now obviously he has that experience at Intercounty with Laois, done a fantastic job with Laois in my opinion, and Laois probably should have done a lot more to keep him in the position. Obviously Derek McGrath, Davy Fitz have managed at the high level, and you look at David then as well. Obviously, I think David, next step probably is the transition to maybe an All-Ireland team, a Lee McCarthy team, whether it be a Laois or potentially a Dublin. I'm not so sure. But personally, I would have thought Eddie was being primed for the job. The fact that he was brought into Coola, he's in his second season with him now, and potentially
he's not there now, actually.
Oh, is he not?
No, and actually, funnily enough, if we're talking about Davy Fitz being a candidate, Saoirse Bulfin is involved with Coola at the moment. Now, Bulfin had been involved with Meath this year, and JJ Doyle has been there at times too. So both of these would be running mates with Davy. So the pot thickens there a little bit.
Right. Okay. God, I actually, for whatever reason, I thought that Eddie was still involved with Coola. So, look, definitely, I think Eddie would be very interested in kind of dipping his toe back into the inter-county scene. But, as I said, the X factor, you're probably looking at a Davy or a Derek McGrath, which would probably, fill those kind of, I suppose, ideas from my point of view. Like we spoke about it, Davy Fitz always improves a team that he goes into. You always get that bounce factor from him. So is that maybe someone that Dublin would be looking to get in and see what he could do with that group of players? But look, it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure there'll be it'll be a long thought out process from a Dublin point of view, because they can't make a rash decision. I think they'll take their time and get it right.
Yeah. So, Kieran, what's your sense of where this will go next for Dublin?
Yeah, I suppose there's no rush anyway. That's number one. There's plenty of time. Usually in these situations, there's a lot of names that are banded, and usually, Rabbit comes out of the hat near the tail end of it that nobody expects. I wouldn't rule that out either. But going with the personnel that's been mentioned there, you could make a case for all of them. But for me personally, if Dublin were serious about picking one of the list that we're after mentioning, to me, Derek McGrath would be our man straight away, because he's experienced, he knows the game inside out, and the modern game, and he's an exceptional tactician. And and I know I'm coming into Sunday week, but tactics going to play a huge part in that. McGrath is top class in that. Yeah, and I'd reckon also Eddie Brennan would do a super job. He had it in touch with Leash, and I'd imagine if he'd a better squad to work with, that he'd probably bring him to a new level or levels where they hadn't been before. So to me, I probably one or two of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, having been in a dressing room with Eddie Brennan and David Herity, I mean, obviously you have too, Richie. I can speak very positively about both of them. The rest, I haven't been in a dressing room, so I don't know. I would nearly have to rely on somebody else's thoughts on that. So if you want to see the rest of the show, go to patreon.com/OurGame. For more exclusive content, go to patreon.com/OurGame.